Good Monday morning, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans. Gene Daddy here, and it's a wonderful sunny day here in the most luxurious uh, garden state of New Jersey. And we've got lots of news. As you can see, I have my quarantine coif. My unfortunately my barber guy has been closed for a while since all of this thing has been going on. But let's get into it really quickly. And the question that I have been raising, looking at all the evidence that has been coming in and so forth, is was this whole thing truly a hoax? Now, remember, the president was accused of calling it a hoax, but he did not call the disease or the virus a hoax. He called the use of the virus against him and the scenario against him as a hoax, as he said in his rally in North Carolina. Now, why do I ask if this is a hoax? Well, thank you for asking. Last week, the censorship Gestapo at YouTube and in the media once again showed their true censorship colors by censoring two doctors that had a video. Two doctors from California, a Dr. Dan Erickson and an Artin Masihi, who are immunologists who have clinics in out in California in Fresno, Bakersfield, and that's Baco to you California natives, and San Diego, aka Dago, once again to you California natives. And between the two of them, they have 40 years of combined experience in immunology. And therefore, they qualify as scientists. Remember, let's listen to the scientists. Well, doctors, I believe, and I hope qualify as scientists. And they had their own set of data that they compiled in their area in Bakersfield. And they used one of my favorite words in the English language, extrapolation. That's right. And it's not just the name of one of the first albums by John McLaughlin. No, extrapolation, as was used by Ross Perot, if you remember that. Extrapolation, what is that? Again, thank you for asking. Extrapolation is when you have a set of data or an experience, and you are able to use projection to predict some type of outcome. So, for example, let's say I'm a bodega owner, right? And this is kind of like an example that Ross Perot used. Let's say I'm a bodega owner and I'm the bodegiest bodega owner in town, and I have the most successful bodega. Well, I might extrapolate that out and say, well, if I have a successful bodega, I might be able to run a Walmart, right? So that's extrapolation. So through all of their data, they came up with, I don't know the exact numbers. I think in their area in Bakersfield, there was like 1,200 odd deaths from the coronavirus or COVID, whatever, Wu flu, right? And they were extrapolating their data to show through percentages across the state of California that you would have a 0.03 chance of dying from this virus, right? And the ultimate point of their research is that there have been many cases, many people have been tested positive that may not even show symptoms, and that's a key thing, but there was low deaths. Many cases, low death. Many cases, very few deaths related. And again, the populations that were affected were the elderly, many times with a compromised immune system and so forth. And they compared it to the flu, which happens to us every year, which has way more deaths based on their statistics, and a lot of people have said it. You have a 0.13 or 13% chance of dying from the flu than you do with this current virus, which 0.03% or less, right, which is 3%. And they talked about New York New York, of course, having their own database and so forth and so on. But based on their general look at it, they were saying, based on the numbers that they have seen, that you might have a 1% chance of dying from the coronavirus if you lived here in the tri-state area, because New York and New Jersey were the hardest hit because of the density of our area, right? So their question was, which is highly legit, does this warrant a shutdown? This low morbidity rate from specifically the coronavirus, does it warrant a shutdown? So that's why, is this necessarily a hoax? Because if the flu has a higher percentage of deaths than this, what's the panic? I mean, yes, take precautions, but do the actions justify the severity of the illness? Shutting down the entire economy, does that justify it? And that was the main point of their releasing of their data. Now, the other thing that they mentioned was the comorbidity rate. Someone may have had a heart attack, someone may have had diabetes, someone may have had some other type of internal ailment, but they may have had COVID at the same time. Ergo, the conclusion was that it was the coronavirus that killed these people, which is skewing the numbers. And they also discuss padding the numbers in that regard, whereas they talked about going to the morgue and being pressed to diagnose the deaths as being COVID related. So are the numbers being padded? Is this actually a hoax? Are these people who are dying? Because I see it on the news every day. Oh, we have 100 and odd thousand cases, and they mention the deaths. Oh, we had 500 deaths over the weekend, but they never say what caused the deaths. Were the deaths specifically and directly a result of this virus, or was it a comorbidity issue where the patient had something else and the virus came in and finished them off? Sorry to be so crude. For example, like with HIV, right? It wasn't HIV that killed you. It's what came in afterwards. So if you had I forgot the name of all the letters of HIV, but essentially you had a compromised immune system, and if you got a cold, it was the cold that was going to take you out, right? So big feast of food for thought about this being a hoax. Why are we being shut down for this when the numbers are showing that this potentially is not as severe and as serious as it may be believed to be? The next thing on the list in news, the next thing, moving right along, is Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden on the 1st of May had a interview on MS-13 DNC with Mika Brzezinski. And you have to give her credit in this interview. It was not a softball interview. She kept hitting him with questions from as many different angles, and she even proclaimed as such, I'm going to ask you questions from different angles on this. And of course, it has to do with the Tara Reade sexual assault allegation. And the Biden campaign has had much time to get their stuff together, to get their story straight, right? And essentially, it came down to a couple of things. Of course, he denied it. He denied it outright. And he essentially told us where to look. She asked him questions about the Senate archives, and he said, no, there would be no personnel records in the Senate. I stand corrected. He said that any complaint that would be against him would be in the Senate archives. And then she pressed him on the University of Delaware. Wouldn't the University of Delaware have some of your paperwork? And that's when he was like, no, that is not the place to look. Well, if you say that's not the place to look, then guess what? That's the place to look. She said, well, why wouldn't you, suggest an investigation? If you want to be open about it, say, yeah, go ahead, investigate in the University of Delaware. And he's like, no, that is not the place to look. Now, apparently, there were some documents that were going to be uh, released to the public, but were somehow conveniently, after this came up, resealed, released and resealed, using the same letters there, um, right? And she questioned the timing of that. Why were these things all of a sudden resealed now? Why don't you voluntarily say, "Hey, let's take a look at let's take a look at this. I have nothing to hide. Let's take a look at it," right? So, moving along with this same topic, his position now is that we should believe women and then vet them for essentially do an investigation into the validity of what it is that they're saying, which of course is not what he was saying with Blasey Ford and Kavanaugh. He was talking about, oh yeah, women should be heard, but he never said anything about, oh, but their claims should be investigated. No, that was never part of his thing with the whole hashtag Me Too and believe all women. So once again, the hypocrisy is in the open. Where is the outcry against Joe Biden? Where is the digging into his past? Where is the finding out of searching out for extra victims and so forth and so on? Where is it? So the hypocrisy is real. Now, just some side notes from this weekend. I had a chance to walk through New York City. First time I'd been there in a month and a half since this started. And the streets were still deserted up in Union Square area. And then, headed down to World Trade Center, down to the Oculus. And it was, it was completely empty. It's like, that is not the New York City that anyone who knows New York City is used to. Just completely barren and empty. So that was an experience in itself, to see an empty, desolate New York City with streets being empty, barely any cars, barely anybody walking around. I even saw some businesses that were closed along 14th Street. The Vans, no, by Union Square, whatever that side street is, whatever. By Union, the Vans store was closed. Vans sneakers. I think there was one other store that I saw that was closing, and a couple of other, even the Chipotle that myself and baby boy went to had one of those real estate lock things on the door. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. That's my take on things. Of course, fight amongst yourselves down in the comment section mosh pit. And I am Gene Daddy, and I am out.